Welcome to Galactic Nova Stories, where cosmic emotions come to life. Your journey begins now. The starlight didn't blink. It flickered, weak and uncertain, as if the cosmos itself was holding its breath. Aelya stood still at the observation window, her silhouette sharp against the dying embers of space. The blackness beyond was not empty, it was full of ghosts. Her breath fogged the glass again. She didn't wipe it away. Let the haze cover the ruins. Let memory do what it always did. Blur, distort, eventually fade, but not yet. She still remembered the scent of home. Fresh stoneflowers after rain. The hummingbird shrieks from the cliffs, her mother's voice low and rhythmic reciting star maps by heart. She closed her eyes. It felt like pressing against the walls of a dream you were already waking from. Behind her, the deck lights buzzed with failing energy. Another system dying. Another breath closer to nothingness. She should have let it all go. Let the ship drift with her in it. But something, a flicker of instinct or spite or something crueler, made her live. And now he was here. The man who had stepped through her door with nothing but a soft voice and quiet eyes. He hadn't moved since sitting down. Still watching. The view. Still giving her silence like he knew it was the only language she trusted right now. Aelya finally turned to study him more carefully. He wasn't armored. No plasma rifle. No squad. No artificial enhancements that made her skin crawl. Just a man. Messy, dark hair. That weird mix of field-worn and soft-hearted. "Do you always walk into wreckage uninvited?" she asked, crossing her arms. He looked. At her then. Really looked. No, just when something tells me someone inside doesn't want to die alone. His words struck somewhere she wasn't ready to admit hurt. She didn't answer. Instead, she leaned back against the edge of the console, keeping the cracked glass at her side. "What's your name?" she asked. He tilted his head. "Would you believe me if I said I didn't remember?" She arched an eyebrow. "No." A soft smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Didn't think so. It's Kael." Aelya didn't offer hers. Not yet. He didn't push. Instead, Kael looked around. The broken room. His gaze lingered on things most others would have missed. How the fabric covering one of the chairs was patched by hand, or how someone had carefully etched family sigils into the hull metal with a stylus. "This was more than just a ship," he murmured. She nodded slowly. This was a sanctuary before it became a tomb. He lowered his eyes respectfully. "I'm sorry." For a while, neither of them spoke. A faint buzz from the power core kicked in, casting flickers of artificial light across the room. For a split second, it made her look like she was glowing, like something half divine, or barely holding together. Kael stood and walked to the console she'd been standing at earlier. His hand hovered above the displayed coordinates. "You read them, didn't you?" he asked. She hesitated. "I thought about it." Which was true, but she had memorized them too, every digit, every curve. Her mind had already drawn the planet 1,000 ways, lush, barren, hostile, or kind. "You sent them," she said carefully. "Why?" He tapped the edge of the panel. "Because I wanted to give you a choice." "A choice?" "To leave. This place or stay in it until it becomes you." She narrowed her eyes. "Why do you care?" He looked at her again, not like she was broken, not like she was fragile. "Like she mattered, because someone once gave me the same choice," he said, "and I took it, barely." Aelya's eyes searched his. There was something buried there, pain, yes, but also memory. "What did you lose?" she asked. His mouth twitched, like he wasn't sure if he wanted to speak or scream, but finally he said, "Everything. Not all at once, but piece by piece. By the time I noticed, I was already someone else." She understood that. Deeply. Too deeply. But she wasn't ready to say it aloud. Kael walked closer, slowly, like someone who knew what it meant to approach a wounded animal. When he reached her, he didn't try to touch her. He simply sat beside her on the edge of the console, leaving a respectful space between them. "The place I told you about," he said, voice lower now. "It's not perfect, but it's untouched, it's hidden, and it's green. So green it hurts your eyes the first time you see it. He chuckled softly. I remember falling into a river and thinking, this is it. This is what breathing was supposed to feel like. She didn't smile, but something in her chest ached in a good way. Aelya's voice was a whisper. And you think I can just start over? Kael looked at her. No, I think you already started by opening the door. She met his eyes for a long time, and for a moment something passed between them. Not words, not thoughts, just recognition. Two souls with matching scars. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. Galactic Nova Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. The silence that followed didn't feel empty this time. It felt like a beginning. The small ship he brought was barely big enough for two. Aelya didn't comment on that as she stepped inside. It smelled like rust and old sunlight, with faint traces of dried herbs tucked into a ventilation grate. She hadn't expected that. Kael caught her glance. Thessa and pine for the nerves. Found it in a trade crate. Still keeps the air clean. She didn't respond, but she sat. The passenger seat was cracked, and the cushions were repaired with mismatched threads. One of the seams looked like it had been stitched by hand. Carefully, maybe even recently. Kael eased into the pilot's chair. He didn't immediately start the engine. Instead, he sat there for a second, staring at the controls like he needed to ask permission from something unseen. You can still change your mind, he said quietly. Aelya folded her hands in her lap. Do you want me to? He turned his head slightly, enough for her to see the truth in his answer. No. They didn't speak for a few minutes after takeoff. The station grew smaller in the viewport, drifting into the black like a discarded thought. Aelya stared at it as long as she could, until it became a blur, then a star, then nothing. Her throat burned. She didn't cry, but it felt like she was trying not to. I didn't bury them, she said suddenly. Kael glanced over, brows raised. Slightly. I couldn't. There were too many. She looked down at her hands, flexed them once, then let them fall to her knees. And I wasn't strong enough to make peace with that. Kael didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for a small tin beneath the dashboard, opened it, pulled out something simple, a woven bracelet of old string and metal beads. He passed it to her without a word. She frowned. What is this? It belonged to someone I couldn't bury either. His voice was quiet, raw. Sometimes holding on to something small is the only thing that stops you from disappearing with them. Aelya ran her fingers across the rough weave. Do you want it back? Kael shook his head once. I want someone to carry it who understands. Her fingers tightened, not in fear, just in knowing. For the first time, her voice softened. My sister used to say that the dead never truly leave. They wait, in starlight, in stories. I think she was right. She turned to him then. The way he looked at her, there was no pity, no hero complex, just a kind of gravity she didn't expect, something grounding. The ship cruised through asteroid fields and ion trails. Every now and then turbulence shook the hull gently. Kael adjusted the controls smoothly, like someone who'd been in the void long enough to stop fearing it. Aelya watched his hands on the console. Where did you learn to fly like that? He smiled faintly. My mother. She used to say the stars owed her nothing, but she was going to dance between them anyway. She laughed just once. It surprised both of them. I like her already. Kael smiled wider. She'd like you, too. She didn't take crap from anyone either. The laughter faded into a quiet comfort. Aelya looked back toward the stars. She whispered, I'm scared, not of dying, but of surviving somewhere I don't belong. Kael turned serious. That fear, I know it. Every day I stayed alive after losing my crew, I thought, why me? Why this version of me, the one without them? She nodded slowly. He leaned just slightly closer. His shoulder brushed hers, barely, but the contact was warm, gentle. A question. She didn't pull away. Then what changed? She asked. He didn't answer with words. Instead, he reached to the holoscreen and activated a small recording, a slow projection built in front of them. Lush green canopies, waterfalls suspended in air, silver-winged birds flitting through clouds. The new world. Untouched. Hope, he said at last. That's what changed. The ship coasted on in silence, lit by the soft light of a world that waited just beyond memory. The descent was slower than she expected. As the planet grew in the viewport, Aelya leaned forward, her breath catching. The atmosphere shimmered with violet bands, like folded ribbons of aurora. Beneath it, a tapestry of green stretched endlessly. Dense, forests with blue-tinted leaves, winding rivers that sparkled like mirrors, and mountains shaped like spiraling spires of crystal. Kael lowered the ship gently. His voice broke the silence. It's called Lirai. No official designation. Not on any trade routes. Found it by accident. It doesn't look real, he smiled. I thought the same. The landing was soft, cushioned by the mossy terrain. When the ramp opened, a warm wind blew in, carrying the scent of unfamiliar. Flowers, sweet, earthy, a little sharp like citrus and rain. Aelya stepped out slowly. Her boots pressed into the thick moss, which yielded like a soft mattress. Everything here felt alive. Birds she couldn't name darted through branches. Trees glowed faintly at their roots. Small insects hovered in spirals, leaving trails of gold in the air. Kael followed her out, stopping beside her. Most people can't handle this much silence, he said quietly. It makes them feel small. I don't mind feeling small, she said. It's better than feeling nothing. They walked in slow silence, deeper into the forest. Aelya noticed how Kael kept glancing at her, checking if she was okay without asking. His hand stayed loose at his sides, but he kept close, not imposing, not distant, just near. I don't know how to live in beauty like this, she admitted. Kael turned to her. You don't have to. You just exist in it. It'll do the rest. She paused under a massive tree whose bark shimmered like wet stone. She reached out and touched it. It was warm. I used to believe that places like this were only for stories. They were, he said softly. Until you earned one. She looked at him sharply. Don't put me on a pedestal. He shrugged. I'm not. Just recognizing. Someone who walked through fire and still knows how to breathe. Her jaw clenched slightly. Barely. Kael stopped. The forest quieted around them, like it was listening. He looked her in the eyes. I lost a friend on the last planet we tried to settle, he said. A good man, he got sick from something in the water. We didn't know how to treat it. Aelya's expression softened. You tried. We tried everything. I held him when he couldn't speak anymore. I promised I'd keep going, not because I wanted to, but because he asked me to. She stared at him, heart aching. And did it help going on? He hesitated, then nodded once. Eventually, yeah. And now, I don't know. Maybe helping you is helping me too. The breeze moved gently through her hair. She closed her eyes and let it wash over her. It didn't erase the pain, but it didn't feel like it owned her anymore. I'm not ready, she whispered. You don't have to be, Kael replied. Aelya opened her eyes slowly. He was standing closer now, but still not touching her. His presence was steady, open. She reached up and touched his shoulder. Just once. Just enough. He didn't move, didn't speak. But his eyes said everything, and for the first time in so long she felt seen, not as a weapon. Not as a relic of a dying world, but as a person. The sun on Lirai was soft, more like the gentle warmth of a summer afternoon than the sharp heat of a distant star. Aelya and Kael walked further into the forest, following a winding path that seemed to have no end. The trees here whispered in low tones, their branches shifting as if they had secrets to share. Aelya didn't ask where they were going. She didn't care. This place was hers now, for however long it would last. They came upon a small clearing where the air was thick with the scent of wildflowers. At the center, a crystalline pond gleamed under the sunlight, its surface shimmering with soft hues. Dove lavender and gold. Kael stopped a few paces away, eyes fixed on the water. "It's beautiful," Aelya murmured, stepping closer to the edge. He nodded, but his gaze lingered on her. "More than you think." She tilted her head, a little confused. "How's that?" His voice was almost too soft to hear. "Because beauty like this doesn't just exist, it has to be earned. Every world has its price." Aelya swallowed hard. Her pulse quickened. "What's the price for this one?" Kael's eyes didn't waver. "A part of you, maybe more than one." She turned sharply to him. "Is this what you meant when you said I could start over?" He took a slow step closer, his face unreadable. "No, not exactly. This place doesn't offer a clean slate. It offers something harder, the chance to choose who you are. Every day." Aelya's chest tightened. "And what if I don't know who I am anymore?" Kael reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "Then you don't have to know all at once. I'm still figuring it out too." Her heart raced and her mind screamed to pull away, to put up the walls she had built so carefully. But for once, she let herself stay still. Let the moment unfold. They were close now, so close that she could feel his breath warm against her skin. "What happens if I fall?" she asked quietly. "Then I'll catch you." She met his eyes. They were dark, but not cold, not distant. They were full of something Aelya couldn't name, maybe understanding, maybe hope. He didn't wait for her to respond. Instead, he took her hand gently, pulling her toward the edge of the pond. The water lapped softly at the shore, clear as crystal, reflecting the endless sky above. Aelya's heart thudded in her chest, and she didn't know if it was the fear or the closeness to him that made her feel so exposed. "Tell me something," she whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. "What?" Kael asked, his thumb gently stroking the back of her hand. "What's your biggest fear?" His eyes flashed with something, surprise maybe. But then it softened. He paused before speaking. "That I'll forget why I keep going." Aelya's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" He looked out at the pond, his fingers still holding hers. "I keep moving forward, for the people I lost, for the ones I promised to save. But sometimes I wonder if I'm running away from myself." Her heart clenched. "I understand that." Kael turned to her. His eyes were searching, as if he was looking for something in her that he hadn't found in anyone else. "What about you? What's your fear?" Her throat went dry. She swallowed before answering. "That I'll wake up one day and realize I never really left. That this pain will always be a part of me. That I'll keep living, but only as a shadow of who I used to be." He moved closer, so close that the space between them felt like nothing. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, and Aelya felt the electricity of the moment pulse between them. "You won't be a shadow," he whispered. "I won't let you be." His words hung in the air, thick with meaning. Aelya's breath caught. She wasn't sure what she expected, but it wasn't this. A quiet promise in the midst of a world so full of life. For a moment, they simply stood there, holding hands, surrounded by the soft sounds of the forest. The world felt vast, terrifying, beautiful, and maybe, just maybe, she could find a way to fit into it again. Kael slowly leaned forward, his face just inches from hers. She could feel his warmth, the pull of him drawing her in. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. Aelya closed her eyes. She wasn't sure what she was ready for, but for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel the need to have all the answers. She nodded, and as the wind whispered through the trees, Kael's lips brushed against hers, a gentle kiss that tasted like both hope and uncertainty. It wasn't the start of something perfect, but it was a start, and that was enough. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the forest. The air was thick with the hum of unseen creatures and the soft rustle of leaves. Aelya walked ahead, her feet light on the mossy ground, but something had shifted in the air, a quiet tension, like the calm before a storm. She paused, glancing. Over her shoulder, Kael was standing a few steps behind, his face grim. His eyes were focused, scanning the space around them. "What is it?" she asked, her voice low. He didn't answer right away. His fingers twitched toward the weapon on his belt, but then stopped. "We're not alone," he said quietly. Aelya felt a cold prickle on the back of her neck. "What do you mean?" Kael stepped closer, lowering his voice. "There's something out there, I don't know what yet, but it's watching us." The forest suddenly seemed too quiet. The air felt heavier, as if the very ground was holding its breath. Aelya reached for the small communication device strapped to her wrist, but Kael stopped her. His hand was firm but gentle on her wrist. "Don't," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "It'll hear us. It knows how to track signals." Her heart skipped a beat. "So what do we do?" He looked around, his eyes scanning every shadow, every movement in the distance. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it now. "Stay close. Don't make a sound. If we're careful, we can make it to the ship." Aelya nodded, her breath coming a little faster now. She could feel the tension in the air wrapping around them like a thick fog. They moved quietly, their footsteps muffled by the thick moss beneath them. Kael's hand remained close to hers, ready to catch her if she stumbled. But then, a low growl echoed from somewhere behind them. Aelya froze, her heart pounding. She didn't turn to look. She didn't have to. Kael gripped her arm tighter, pulling her closer. "Run," he hissed. "Now!" They sprinted. The sound of their feet hitting the soft ground was drowned out by the growling that grew louder, closer. Aelya's breath came in quick, shallow bursts. Her mind raced, but she could hardly think. "Kael, what is it?" He didn't answer. He just kept running, pulling her along with him, dodging trees and branches. Then they heard it, an animalistic screech, the sound of claws raking against bark, a horrific shriek of something not quite human. Aelya's pulse pounded in her ears. She was gasping for air now, her legs burning from the effort. She had no idea how long they'd been running. It felt like an eternity. Kael pulled her toward a thick cluster of trees. The shadows were deep here, hiding them from whatever was, hunting them. They crouched low, breathing hard, trying to control their panic. Aelya's mind raced. Her eyes darted from side to side, every sound magnified in the quiet. "Do you think it's still following us?" she whispered. Kael's eyes were intense, focused. "I don't know, but we can't stay here long." She nodded, glancing at the path ahead. But just as they were about to move again, the ground beneath them trembled. It was subtle at first, a slight vibration that they could feel in their bones. Then it hit them. A deafening roar, a monstrous sound that made the forest shake, sending birds scattering from their perches. Aelya's breath caught in her throat. She looked at Kael, her eyes wide with terror. "That's it," she whispered. "That's what's after us." He didn't respond. Instead, he grabbed her hand again and pulled her toward a cluster of rocks ahead. "We have to move fast," he said, his voice tight. "If we don't get back to the ship now, we'll be trapped." They ran again, faster now, their hearts racing in their chests. The sound of the creature was growing louder, closer. They burst into a small clearing, and there it was, standing at the far edge of the trees, a massive, hulking figure covered in dark scales with eyes that glowed like fire. It was watching them, a predator sizing up its prey. Kael pulled Aelya behind a large rock, his hand still clutching hers. His eyes never left the creature. "Kael," Aelya's voice trembled. "What do we do?" His gaze was locked on the creature. "We don't run, we don't fight, we stand our ground." Aelya's heart skipped. "What?" "We wait," Kael said, "until we can make it to the ship, and we don't stop until we're safe." Aelya took a slow breath. Her pulse was still racing, but something in Kael's words grounded her. The fear didn't vanish, but it was manageable. With him, it was manageable. The creature let out another roar, the ground vibrating beneath them again. But Aelya stayed still, her body tense, her hand tightly clutching Kael's. The silence between them was thick, punctuated only by the sounds of the creature and the pounding of their hearts. Kael's voice was a soft murmur. "I'll keep you safe." Her grip on his hand tightened. "I believe you," she whispered back. The roar of the creature echoed through the trees, vibrating the ground beneath their feet. The air was thick with anticipation. Aelya's heart pounded in her chest, her body pressed against the cool rock as she tried to steady her breathing. Kael's hand was still wrapped around hers, firm and warm, grounding her. The creature was out there, pacing, waiting for them to make a mistake. Every growl, every step it took, felt like a warning. Kael's eyes never left the creature. His jaw was set, but there was something different in his gaze now. Determination mixed with a quiet, steady resolve. "We can't stay here much longer," Aelya whispered. He nodded, his voice low. "We wait for the right moment." Aelya's eyes flickered toward the ship in the distance, just visible through the trees. It felt so far away. She could hear the heavy, ragged breaths she was taking, each one more desperate than the last. "Kael," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. His gaze flickered to her, a soft question in his eyes. "I'm scared," she admitted, her words shaking. "I don't know if I'm strong enough for this." Kael didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned closer, his forehead gently brushing hers. For a moment, the world seemed to still. "You are stronger than you think," he said quietly. "You've survived more than most people could even imagine, and you're still here, fighting." Aelya's throat tightened. She wanted to argue, to push away his words, but there was something in his tone, something in his touch that made her believe him. Kael gently cupped her face, his fingers warm against her skin. "We do this together, no matter what happens." She nodded, feeling a swell of emotion she couldn't quite place. The creature growled again, louder this time, and the moment passed. Kael's hand slid back to hers, and they both stood, muscles tense. "Now," Kael said, his voice steady and clear. They sprinted, their feet pounding against the soft earth, the creature's shrieks growing louder behind them. Every step felt like an eternity. The ship was closer now, so close she could almost taste the safety it promised. Aelya glanced over at Kael. His face was set, focused, but his eyes were full of something she couldn't ignore. Something real. They reached the ship, the doors sliding open just as the creature lunged from the trees. Kael pushed her inside first, then followed, slamming the door shut just as the massive claws scraped against the metal. The ship hummed to life, engines roaring as Kael threw the controls into full thrust. The creature's growls faded into the distance, and they shot into the sky, leaving the planet behind. Aelya sank into the seat, her breath coming in quick gasps. Her whole body was trembling from the adrenaline. But there was something else, now something more profound. Kael was silent for a moment, eyes fixed on the stars outside the viewport. But when he finally turned to her, his expression was softer than she'd ever seen it. "You okay?" he asked, his voice quiet. Aelya nodded, though she wasn't sure she believed it herself. She looked out at the stars, the endless expanse of the galaxy stretching out before them, and for the first time it didn't feel so lonely. "We made it," she whispered. "We did," Kael agreed, his voice just as soft. The ship was silent again, but this time the silence was different. It wasn't heavy with fear or uncertainty. It was filled with something else, a sense of shared strength, a quiet understanding. Aelya glanced at Kael, her heart full of emotions she couldn't name. There was so much she still didn't know. So much left unanswered. But for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel afraid of the unknown. She turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Kael, what now?" He met her gaze, his eyes searching hers. "Now, we see where this path leads. Together." Aelya smiled, her heart lifting. Together. And as they soared through the stars, the universe suddenly didn't feel so vast. Not with him by her side. If this story moved you, share it with someone who loves powerful tales from distant worlds. Don't forget to like and let us know in the comments. What would you have done?